Hi, welcome to Enter the Bunker, where we launch you into thriving. Each week we talk about a different virtue that can be used as a building brick to build your own personal bunkers. We share personal stories, as well as tips and tricks to help you thrive instead of survive. So sit down, relax, and enter the bunker.
And welcome to Enter the Bunker. This week's building brick is tolerance. My name's Kelly.
And I'm Jonathan.
And we're going to go over the meaning of tolerance.
What's it mean?
It means being open to differences, refraining from judgment, patience and forgiveness with others and ourselves, accepting things that we wish were different with humor and grace.
Do you think there's a lot of tolerance in today's world?
No.
No?
I don't know. I like to think. I don't know. Some people definitely bring more tolerance than others. And I feel like, you just got to surround yourself with those people.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot. I mean, being open to differences.
Yeah.
I'd say there's a lack of that today.
Yeah.
I think that especially in the last couple of years, there's been a very purposeful weaponization of intolerance towards anybody who has differences of any kind.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've seen it, and it's like you can look at the media, you could look at the prime minister who's actually said things that actually are, he's literally said, do we tolerate these people?
Yeah.
As though we shouldn't tolerate these people, like sort of thing, right? And of course, he's referring to people who are unvaccinated and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the thing is that tolerance today is I would say under fire. I think
that's a good way to put it.
a lot of people have been so bombarded with intolerance of so many things that they think that this is almost the social norm now. And you see it in social media, you see it in the way people interact with people, you even see it like in how people go about their business, how they engage with each other.
Yeah.
And it's really it's very alarming because it tears at the very fabric of a society if you don't have tolerance, because we're all different. We all have differences.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So how are you going to be able to live with others if you're not going to tolerate it, right?
Right.
So it's like what happens, right?
You kind of got me thinking though too, like what you used to tolerate 5 years ago because I guess I'm going to kind of go back to like the last couple of years here. Like they've been hard on everybody. So I don't know how to explain what I'm thinking right now, but maybe you can grab something from it. But so what somebody's tolerance level was 5 years ago versus what it is now, I'm going to say it's not the same. And is that because they've just been like kind of pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed for the last 2 years? So what they think they're still a tolerant person, but I bet you they're not as tolerant as I don't know. It's hard for me to explain what's going on in here. Like,
So I think
it breaks down after a while.
I think what you're describing is that if you ask somebody, are you a tolerant person? They're going to immediately say, oh, yes, I believe, you should accept people's differences and so forth. And then in the next breath, you can ask them, so how do you feel about this? They go, oh, we shouldn't tolerate those kind of people.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what's happened.
Yeah.
And this is where I think that, like I said, it's come under fire.
Yeah.
And it's just, and like you said, because it's been so pushed over and over with these kinds of messaging, people don't even realize.
That's what I'm kind of getting to too. Like
It's-
people aren't even realizing.
Yeah, they're completely unconscious of this intolerance that they're projecting, and it then gets wrapped in justification,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then the justification becomes, well, oh yeah, we can't tolerate that kind of thing because for the greater good,
Yeah.
or
I've tolerated this for the past 2 years. I'm done with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to trick yourself
Mhm.
into thinking you're tolerant. And because the truth is that being a tolerant person is something in terms of Canada is considered something virtuous, right?
Right.
Like most people would want to identify as
Yeah.
being tolerant.
Yeah.
You grow up even in the school system, they're like, we should tolerate other people's differences, and it's everywhere.
Mhm.
But when you see how it's almost comical in a tragic kind of way how people have been so pushed into an intolerant way of thinking,
Hmm.
while at the very same time thinking that they're tolerant people.
Yeah.
It's almost tragic that they've lost sight of what tolerance actually means.
Right.
They like you talk to somebody about the possibility of like not just differences, but refraining from judgment,
Hmm.
right?
Honestly, like when I heard the word tolerance, like, okay, we're gonna be doing the building brick tolerance this week. I was like, isn't that a lot like patience? And then I got reading it and I'm like, it's kind of nothing like patience, but that's in my head. That's how what I referred tolerance to was patience.
Yeah,
Like kind of like the same thing, but it's
yeah.
not.
It's not. It involves being able to be forgiving.
Yeah.
It involves like having like you said, like
Maybe like listening to the differences. That's where patience can come into
yeah,
tolerance. Like
yeah,
you have to have the patience to listen to the differences.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then not actually be judgmental
Yes.
towards them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah,
I
in
don't know.
today's world,
I like
no
the how you
matter
said the on fire thing. Like that's
yeah,
on point right there.
we definitely need to have not just I mean, like, I like the idea like, tolerance in itself is to me, like, one level, and then there's understanding,
Yeah.
like, it's being open to people's differences, sure, but then it's one thing to being open to those differences, it's another to, like, really dive in and go, like, "Let me understand that." Like,
Yeah.
where is that person coming from? Because everybody is in a different place in their lives, in the journey of the world, like, going through the world and so forth, so they're all in different places, and to really understand where somebody's at takes more than tolerance.
Oh yeah.
It takes more of a real curiosity to
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
understand where somebody is at. And in that process, it does help you to then be more tolerant of different things that are out
Right.
there, right? Because you can then recognize, like, as soon as you see somebody who does have differences from you, then the tolerance towards them is almost like instant.
Right.
It's not something you have to struggle with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
You
we can think,
practice it.
yeah. So here's a very good example of what we see all the time is how political divides happen,
Right.
right? As soon as you say Trump,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
instantly there's a whole bunch of people that are triggered, and then they're just like, nope, I'm not going to listen to what that person has to say
Yeah.
because they support Trump,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Or as soon as somebody says
Vice versa.
Democrat, in some circles, then a whole bunch of people will be triggered and
Yeah.
go, nope, I'm not going to listen to what that person says because they've passed judgment. They don't like the differences. They are not forgiving. They will not be patient with anything that the person has to say at this point.
Right.
Totally intolerant,
Yeah.
right? So
Complete opposite of tolerance.
total opposite, right?
Yeah.
So what does tolerance look like in those kind of situations, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as somebody says Trump,
Yeah.
okay, am I going to completely dismiss everything they say, right? Am I?
No.
If I'm being tolerant? No.
No.
Right? I'm going to be like, okay, that gives me some. If I'm going to be first, I got to understand. It's like, okay, this person supports Trump, which gives me an idea of like where he's coming from,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
and then whatever he has to say, I can give that. It gives me context,
Yeah.
and then with that, I can be tolerant of the difference, right?
Right.
Without actually being judgmental. Saying I'm not going to listen to them,
Yeah.
and then and all the kind of thing that we see happening all the time.
Yeah.
And you know what? The system loves this happening. They
Yeah.
love the intolerance
Yeah.
because the more people are fighting about these kinds of things, the less attention they're paying to them.
To the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but if people could develop more tolerance, then wouldn't see a lot of the divide that goes on
That
in
goes
today's
on,
world.
which
Yeah.
is becoming even more.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into some quotes here. First quote: tolerance implies no lack of commitment to one's own beliefs. Rather, it condemns the oppression or persecution of others. Second quote:
John F.
Tol-
Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy. Sorry, John F. Kennedy. Second quote. We're just going to get on with it. Tolerance is giving to every other human being every right that you claim for yourself. Robert Greene Ingersoll. He's an American lawyer and writer. Third quote: in the practice of tolerance, one's enemy is the best teacher. Dalai Lama. And finally, think for yourself and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too. Voltaire, a French writer and philosopher. So, which quote was your favorite?
I like how Voltaire put it.
Think for yourself and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too.
Yeah, because that to me is what tolerance is all about. And I think it was Voltaire that said, I think he said, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the end. Like I will fight to the death your right to say it. Right.
I love that. I like
And
this
yeah.
guy. Who is he?
so
French writer.
so yeah, in terms of thinking for yourself and letting others enjoy the privilege of doing so as well, is that to me is tolerance. And that's, like I said, something that is lacking today. Is
Mhm.
everybody expects everybody to agree with them. There's no allowing others to have their own thoughts. So Voltaire, I think, said it best.
So I kind of actually took that like a bit different. Like same but different. So it's think for yourself and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too. So I'm like, instead of like always, I'm a talker. I'm a rambler. I ramble. I'll go on about something. But instead of like me just like maybe going on about something, why not just like shut my mouth for once and let them speak? So I'm thinking, kind of take a load off yourself. You don't have to be the only one to think. Like listen to other people's too. So that was I guess I took that in maybe like a selfish way. I don't know.
No, that's not selfish. That's actually learning to listen,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what I understand from what you're
Yeah.
saying, is that it's good to have your own thoughts,
Yeah.
but allow others to
Yeah.
share their thoughts with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
And
definitely a
honestly, it
way.
might take a load off you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just enjoy it. Like let
Yeah.
them like you may not agree with it.
Yeah.
Allow for the whatever judgment you have to just roll off your shoulders.
Yeah.
And let them enjoy the same sort of process. And yeah, so listening is definitely a part of that. There's a classic saying that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth so that you would listen twice as much as you speak.
Yes.
Right.
I've heard this. Yeah.
So yeah, that's your interpretation, I think, is very apt.
Good. Okay, let's get into the opening here. So actually, yeah, let's do that. I was gonna say my favorite quote, but it's all good. It was the Dalai Lama one. In the practice of tolerance, one's enemy is the best teacher.
That's a close second for me too.
Yeah.
I like it's just the idea that um, you want to, if you're able to get close enough to your enemy to
Yeah.
be able to actually be tolerant of them,
Yeah.
that's like like getting
That's
into your
the ultimate. Like,
yeah
who wants to listen to your enemy? So
yeah
if you can
you
do that,
don't, right. And so if you can actually tolerate that, then that's your die zone,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
that's where you're like, I absolutely would hate doing this. I would die if I
yeah,
have to put up with that. And if you can do that, then that is the best practice
yeah.
in being able to like really develop your tolerance.
Best way to practice it.
There you
Probably.
go.
Just
Yeah,
joking. We'll probably get into that next.
we'll get into that.
Yeah. All right. So everyone has the right to think for ourselves, to express ourselves, to have and share our thoughts and opinions. But what if everyone thought the same thing? That would be kind of boring, wouldn't it? Luckily, we are all a little different, and that means we all have the capacity to think differently, behave differently, and it's these differences that gives life the diversity that it has. But what if some people's thoughts were censored because they were different? What if it was your thoughts that were looked down upon? What if you were considered an outcast because you thought a little differently than your neighbor? It is all too common that dissenting opinions are stamped out or the people are made to feel lesser for having them. In today's world, tolerance is needed now more than ever, like you've said. The world is divided on many things to the point where it seems like the gaps may never be bridged. But showing more tolerance, allowing for different opinions to be discussed, debated, accepted, will help bring us all back together.
There you have it.
Yeah, exactly.
By being tolerant, you're helping save the world.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it's saying.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Dalai Lama quote really had me thinking, because really that is the best way to practice, is find somebody that you're not. Or what about this, kind of going back to, but what about having tolerance? So like it's not so much that you're going to disagree with them, but you really just don't care for the topic that they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? That's still having tolerance if you're taking your time to listen to something that you're just like, you're never going to really think about again, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. That would still be tolerance too, right?
It would be.
I'm thinking not just your enemy. If you were, 'cause some people's enemies are like certain topics, or they don't want to talk about spiders, or
Right.
I guess that's where I'm going. So
So you're talking about tolerating somebody's ramblings. That you don't care
yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. That's a like, I feel like if you can practice that, you're a tolerant person.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Yeah, that is definitely a form of tolerance.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, join us for part 2 on we're going to discuss some more tips on how to bring tolerance to your life.
We'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to Enter the Bunker. Make sure to follow us on Instagram where you can share your story and also look at behind the scenes of how we make our podcast. You can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube by simply searching Enter the Bunker. Tune in next time as we launch into thriving.